let's begin. I'm Erik. I'm a composer, coder, new media artist, and one of, I think, 4 or 5 people involved in this project. Henrik, Frisk, Thomas Durieux, Benoît Bautry, and Jonathan Ramirez was also involved at some point. I'm gonna play a video shortly that's a mashup of the 2 times this work was presented, because I think listening to it will give you the best idea of what it was. But first I will just explain the same explanation that you'll be able to read 2 more times, which is that the audience can take their smartphone, connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot, and we trace all of the packets that go through their internet connection from smartphone to hotspot to the internet. And we take all the metadata related to these packets and sonify them in different ways, using spatialization in Lilla Salen, but also lots of other
techniques. So Lilla Salen is this 3D sonic space where you have a sound dome with 29 speakers or 46 speakers in a dome-like configuration where you can get a very nice 3D experience of sound.
Yeah, exactly. So let's begin.
But this will be a reduction of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think technically it's a binaural mix, but I mean, we can't tell. This did not work.
Exactly here, a little higher.
Yeah.
I know it's a little behind.
So it opened the video in a browser, but the browser is on this screen.
Do your magic.
No, it doesn't work.
Why do you
Could you move this to it's if there's any questions,
Well,
then, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, there's nothing more unless there's any questions, or we can take them afterwards.
We could say, so my name is Henrik Frisk, I'm a professor of music at KMH, which is right next to us here, and I'm a musician and composer, and I work a lot with electronic music. So I think one of the things that was really exciting about this, I think, was the first version we did at Tekniska Museet. That was before this, right?
No, that was afterwards, I think.
Was that after?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Before, after.
Yeah.
All the same. Where it was a pedagogic version of this, and I think that's where I saw that. Oh, that are you in control, or how do I switch?
Arrow. Next.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's where I saw that how this combination of course the visual aspect of this was really strong, but then the sonic aspect of it, how the combination of that being an artistic expression could actually enhance someone's understanding of what was actually going on. So that to me is just a really exciting sort of correlation, which is something that I've been working with since then, thinking about how to explore that. So developing artistic practice with huge data sets brings forth new ways of thinking, both in terms of art and in terms of communication. And so what happened, I think, a lot at Tekniska is that it was during it was interesting, it was actually during the fall break, the week before they closed down.
Yeah.
Was it for the second time of the pandemic, or was it the first time? It must have been the second time of the pandemic. So where everything had opened, and they decided to shut down again. They did that the week after, for instance, so we probably had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But no one knows. But so you could see that, you would come in there and you would connect, and because conceptually you think that, so I go on my phone and I go from where I am and I want to visit Spotify, but then the route from me to Spotify goes through 100 different sort of servers of various kinds. So you could write that down on a paper and say, so here, young man, this is the way it is. But the experience of being in that, so that surrounded by sound and the visuals of this, I think, is very powerful to these young individuals that visited. So that's now something that developing art from data, I think, or this art-driven experience of data, it's important, at least for me, an important aspect of sonification is that developing art from data is not a representation. The art is not a representation of the data. That's what I'm not interested in. That I'm not interested in like, because then we can just look at the data, even though the data might be complex. But that the point with the data-driven art is, nor is it to communicate the data. There are other, I think, much better ways of communicating precise information than with art. That would be pretty. So the experience is what allows for possibility for the listener to understand the underlying data. It's this the aspect that the cognitive, and now I'm a little bit out of bounds because I really don't know this, but the cognitive aspect of experiencing, having an artistic experience, allows for an understanding in other medialities that is really important, I think, and that is a little bit underexplored too. But then, of course, the artistic experience would be really independent from the data, and I think that's a really, really important aspect of all kinds of sonification or attempts to work with sonification artistically, is that there should be the possibility to go into the La Salle and in this installation and just play with it and just ignore whatever message there is.
Yeah.
That's, so that would be the test bed for, does this work? Well, does it work as art by itself? It's likely to work in other ways too. So one of the things now that Roberto and I are working on is this new project, non-verbal communication of invisible information, which is really, in a way, a continuation or part of this work, where a a lot could be said about that title, I think, but it's fascinating to think about that there's this insane amount of invisible information traveling through this room at this moment that we have no idea about, right? Or even when we have some idea that there is, information, we have no idea of the magnitude of stuff going on at the same time, even when it's just in my pocket. The phone is just in my pocket. So you can take this invisible information and you can turn it into sensible sound. Now that's quite interesting just by itself. So there's that transformation of this magnitude of data, which is basically what we did. We took this magnitude of data and we turned it into some kind of sensible sound that worked as sound art, but also worked as a vehicle for understanding the data. And then through this experience, the aspect of experiencing art, the artistic experience, which is this really mystical sort of thing that is both going inwards and outwards at the same time, it's both the internal and external at the same time. There is this possibility for nonverbal communication, right? We can go to a concert and we can have the same experience at the same concert, and we can have this sensation between us. We know something that we did not know before, but it's nonverbal, right? That's fine. That's natural that we know that happened. But then we can go for this nonverbal communications. We can communicate, so we have a sensible. So Roberto and I will go to the same concert. We have had the same experience. Yes, this is not just pretend. So there's this idea that we have a shared piece of knowledge between us, which is nonverbal. It's an experience, and that can be turned into reflection, and eventually it can be conceptualized, and eventually it can be discussed. And then when we reach that point, we can go the other way back, and then we can use that information for new experiences or new creations. And I think that's about all I have to say. But I'll pass over to Roberto, which will continue talking about this project, nonverbal communication of invisible information. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
The end of my presentation. Yes.
At the end, yes. Okay, thank you.